Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at an introduction to Pandas. Now Pandas is a very powerful library. It basically gives us a lot of capabilities around data analysis and data science. It also gives us a very powerful data structure called a data frame, which honestly it's going to be about 90% of the fun that you're going to be having with Pandas is figuring out how to get into these things and filter them. So we're going to take a look at most of those elements today. Keep in mind we could do 40 videos on Pandas alone with how many things are in it, but we're going to try to hit the highlights here. Let's get started. First thing that we're going to have to do with Pandas is we're going to have to get a copy of Pandas. And the standard way people get Pandas is they're going to go ahead and say import Pandas as PD. Now, if you have this big angry red mark right here, this is it screaming at you saying, don't you need this package? Well, if you're in PyCharm, you can actually just come here and press install. And what it will do, if you look down here at the bottom, is it'll actually grab a copy of Pandas and do all the installation work for you. If you're more traditional, or you're using kind of like idle or anything along those lines, you're going to have to actually install the Pandas package for the purpose of, wow, massive alliteration there, for the actual purposes of doing things. And you can see as fast as I can explain it, it is now installed. So a data frame is a giant spreadsheet, if you want to think about it another way. You're going to have rows, and you're going to have columns, and then you're going to have values inside of there. So for example, let's go ahead and create ourselves our first little data frame here. So I'm going to go ahead and type in data equals, and I'll keep it simple. I'll do a dictionary here. And we're going to go ahead and look over there. And then you're going to look back and notice that I've gone ahead and populated my lovely little dictionary here. You can see I have my model, I have my year introduced, I have my takeoff weight, and you can see I've kept everything pretty simple here. I've just got little lists here. And what I want to do is I want to make myself a nice pretty table where basically I have model, year introduced, takeoff weight, and then I have the name and all the values all kind of broken into my item. Now this here is a dictionary. We need to be using something called a data frame. So to make a data frame, we simply type in the name of the data frame equals PD, remember we're using Pandas as PD, dot data frame, and then we simply insert the element. In this case, remember we're using a dictionary here. So again, you can use XLS and CSV and all that other, not today. So I'm going to go ahead and type in data, and now we've built ourselves a data frame. So now we have a nice pretty little table based on all my values here. Now the cool thing here is if I come down here and I print DF, watch this. You're going to get, look at how nice this looks. It's so nice. It has a little index over here on the left. It has, my little piece over here on the thing. You can see all my takeoff weights in kilograms over here. And it's got it all nice and detailed and pretty much ready to rock for us. And that's awesome because now we can start fiddling with the data frame. Now, where things get tricky with data frames is getting the stuff out of the data frames. And again, you can see my nice little example over here on the left of what's in it. The first thing we can do, of course, is we can try to get a column out of a data frame. Now, let's say we just want to get the model column out of here. So, for example, I could say model column. I could say equals. And all we're going to do here is type in df bracket, and we're going to type in the name of the column we want to steal. Now, in this case, you have to be precise. So I'm getting the model column. Now, the cool thing here is if I say I print model column and run this code here, you will see here that it gives me a lovely, ready to go column with all the items on there just like that. So you're sitting there going, oh, so it's kind of like a list. That's not too bad. How would you get the first row? Would you just come in here and do data frame of 0 and press run like that? No, we can't do that. Your key has to be whatever the name of that column is. So let's see if we can get an item, a specific row. Maybe I want to get the row in the 757, for example. The way that that works is we're simply going to say model row. I'll just say selected row. We'll be a little more careful here. And all we're going to do is something called the iloc. So I'm going to type in df, the name of our data frame, dot iloc, left parenthesis, and then we're simply going to describe what we want here. So in our particular case here, I'm going to be getting iloc of 0, which is going to be, if you remember up here, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to grab me the lovely 717. So now if I print selected row like this and run that, you'll observe that it gets me this nice little piece. And not only does it give me a nice little piece, but it gives me everything. It tells me we have the model 717. Now you can see it's the year introduced, takeoff weight. It also is going to give me some little heads up as things like data types and object values and things along those lines to make it a little bit easier for me to be able to kind of identify what I'm working with in that particular position. Now, sometimes what you want to do is you want to get an exact element out of it. For example, I want just this right there. That's where things get a little more challenging, but we can do that as well. So I'm going to do selected element equals data frame at. Now this is where it gets tricky. You have two dimensions you have to describe. The first one is going to be the row. The second one is going to be the column. So in my case, if I come up here, I'm interested in this value, right? So it's going to be 3, comma, and then we're going to go ahead and describe a column. So in our case, we want the year introduced column. So I'm going to come over here and I'll put year introduced just like that. So let's go ahead and print selected element. Now what you'll observe here is just like we promised, it gave you the exact element out of that slot in our lovely table, in this case, the 1969 year introduction of the Boeing 747. And it gives you an idea of just how easy it is to reach in there, grab your XY value essentially, and snap that out of there so that you're ready to rock. Now, things get even better than this is the fact that we have the ability to sort data in a data frame. The only part where data frames get a little challenging is we need to tell it how we want to sort. So let's say sort by year. We want to create a new one. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to grab my original data frame, which is df dot sort underscore values. Now, when you're doing sort values, all you have to do is define what you're going to be using there. In this case, we'll do year introduced because why not? It's nice and easy. So now if I were to come here, print sort by year, and run this, what you'll observe here is it's gone and taken my entire data frame and it's now sorted them by the year of introduction, going straight down here like this. And yes, there's some errors there, but you can see that it actually reset my entire table here to sort of makes everything better. So now if I wanted to, I could come in here and I could say if I wanted to do, what do we have, takeoff weight kilograms, I can actually come in here like this. I go ahead and pop that in there like that. Obviously, sort by weight, and we'll keep this a little bit safer just in case you're following along. Press my run now, and what you'll observe here is it's actually sorted it just like that in that particular direction, again, as the values get bigger. Now, you're probably sitting here going, how do we deal with the ascending problem? That's pretty easy. Just do comma and do ascending. And you could say ascending equals false. Now, if you set that to false and I run it again, you observe that we're now getting the heaviest values on down rather than the smallest values on up. And again, you can see just how handy that is. A little word of warning about memory, by the way, is we didn't sort my original table. We created a new data frame called sort by weight when we did this. So you've doubled your memory consumption. So just be mindful of that. We can actually sort in place. But again, I'm not going to fiddle with that because that can get very, very tricky if you're not careful. All right, so let's keep going. So what other things are we going to need to do? Well, wouldn't it be nice if we could filter values? Yes, indeed, we could do that too. So newer models is going to be my next data frame. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my data frame. Now, this is where your brain's going to hurt a little bit here because remember, I need a data frame from my data frame. Confused yet? So what I'm going to do is data frame of the elements, data frame of the elements. Again, this would be my column, and we'll go ahead and type in a year introduced, just like that. And this is where we have to be a little careful. Greater than, let's pick, I guess we'll do 1970, kind of a thing like that. And of course, we need to close off our last little bracket. Did I do my brackets right? 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, I did my brackets right. So now if I print my newer models, what you'll observe here is I've filtered my big column here, and I'm only getting the values that are greater than 1970 in that specific column. Now, the reason this is so helpful is if I wanted to target a specific range, all I have to do is basically define my specific column that I'm looking into in what value I like to. You can say equal equals, for example. If I only want to get 1970s models, I could say equal equals in here for the purposes of doing it. Now, when you're working with data frames, a lot of times you have very, very, very large data frames. You're dealing with something with a billion items, which credit card transactions, have fun. So when you do things like that, it's kind of helpful to be able to have a way to look into the data. And one of the tips they give you is they actually give you the ability to grab certain elements of it just to preview it. For example, if I wanted to print dataframe.head, this would give me the ability to see the first few items. Now, keep in mind, I have a very tiny data frame here. So the first 5 items are there, but if I only wanted to see the first 2 items, I could actually put a 2 in there and actually only show the first 2 items that I have in there. Now, let's say I want to show the end of a data frame. That's going to be called tail. Let's say I want to see the last 2 items inside my data frame. If I were to run this again, you can see these are my last 2 items, and those are my first 2 items. And you can see they're not sorted or anything because we're not using newer models as this one. And of course, if we wanted to go ahead and describe the data that we have in there, we could go one step further by doing df.describe. Now, there's actually a lot of really fun things you can do with describe here. I'm not gonna overdo it today because, like I said, this can get complicated. But the cool thing is if I run this now, it gives me a nice little introduction here. It says, again, I have 2 things that had numeric values. It's going to tell me how many. It's going to tell me the average. It's going to tell me all the different quartiles and stuff like that, all broken down for you in a nice, convenient statistic package if that is something that you want to do. Now, you're probably sitting here going, Okay, this is good. I can work with this. I can work. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Obviously, for those of you who are big fans of Jupyter notebooks, you've got your work cut out here. But we had to do things the old-fashioned way, right? So there's one more thing we'll take a look at with this, and like I said, we could do a 45-part series on this. There's so many things here, but again, we're just looking at the absolute basics here, and that's the fact that you have the ability to just add something else onto our lovely, lovely little data frame. Do you remember earlier that I showed you that data frames look a little bit like dictionaries? Well, we can do that too. So let's say, for example, that I wanted to add on my own column. So if I wanted to, I'll do passenger capacity. Now watch this. I can simply go here and define each one of these. Let's see, 117, 149. Yes, I have a cheat sheet because I don't know these things off the top of my head. 239, fantastic. So now the cool thing here is if I go ahead and print df, if I run this, you'll observe that I now have a data frame. I've added myself an extra column down the side here, which actually has all the different values that I just added on there, just like that. Enjoy.